Guys, thank you so much for having me in your fantastic offices. Always a pleasure to come here and see you. Really just wanted to take the opportunity to catch up with you to see how you guys have progressed on your journey. I know you've progressed on through to gold certification, so that we've got a complete baseline of your footprint, and we're now working on the carbon reduction plan.
Yeah.
But really also wanted to understand why it was such an important step for you to take that carbon measured approach to the services that you provide. So for those that don't know, Core are now implementing a life cycle assessment to deliver the specific insight and impact of the services that they provide so that their customers can benefit from that. But just really, why was that an important step for you, and why was that an obvious next step for you to take?
I suppose from a new business growth perspective and just our general customers, a lot more questions are being asked around what we're doing with regards to our environmental piece and then the footprint piece. And so therefore, after our engagement with you and us getting a much better understanding of the various scopes and how it all works, it was so important for us to carry out this life cycle assessment, because we know that a number of our customers are asking us questions around what our emissions are, because it's impacting them. As you know, the scope 3 part very much sits with suppliers, providers, and so we have a commitment to provide this information to our customers to help them understand what their emissions are. However, we want to try and own some of those emissions and understand how best we can support our customers going forward to ensure that we, reduce those emissions as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's such an important part of the process. When somebody engages with a supplier or a customer, or they buy a product or commission a service, there's an impact of that. But the issue for most businesses is that they don't, and there's no way of understanding what that impact is, because they're not in control of it. So it's great that organisations like you are taking that approach to say, we recognise that, and therefore we want to have a carbon measured approach to how we provide services for you, so that you do know what that impact is.
Yeah.
And you also know that we know where it's coming from, and this is what we're doing about it, and making sure that anything that is able to be influenced is being influenced, and then we've got a plan in place to keep that as efficient as possible.
Yeah.
What are you seeing in terms of like tenders, for instance, and is it a stark increase in terms of customers asking the kind of questions that haven't been asked before? Is that happening a lot now?
Yeah, I think probably in the past 18 months really, we've gone from only having, I think we probably mentioned this to you before, probably had about 5 questions on a tender,
Right.
and now you can get as much as 3 pages on just purely ESG.
Yeah.
So it has become very important with our tenders. The progression to gold was the next step in our journey to make sure that we're obviously setting and measuring targets so that we can be net zero. And the next step for us is next year to set our actual science-based targets and have clear goals on what we can work to. So I think the progression from silver to gold was fully understanding what data we needed to collect, and we're still not there. With the data that we're collecting at the moment is based on our spend, and obviously what I can do is I can work with the neutral carbon zone team and obviously work with them to find out if there are better ways of us actually capturing the data, because I don't think spend, obviously it's a way of getting us to where we need to go, but we need it to be more exact so we can actually measuring our emissions properly.
Yeah, and the good thing is that a lot of businesses, especially the large businesses, when we tender, see a real importance in this, and therefore the scoring criteria within retenders and tenders, the scoring matrix or metrics around the whole ESG piece has increased quite dramatically. Hence the reason why Sharon's having to fill 5 or 6 pages worth of information rather than a few lines. But that helps drive us with regards to what we're trying to achieve. And as Sharon was saying, the life cycle assessment and some of the other bits that we need to do allows us to position ourselves to work much closer with a lot more organisations and be able to add that value that they're looking for us to provide as well.
Yeah, so that's what we were saying earlier, is that so many organisations now who have had some carbon reporting done are recognising that actually the biggest portion of that footprint sits within their supply chain, and that's the bit that they have the least amount of control with. So when you have an organisation such as yourselves that's going to that depth of detail and going into the ins and outs of what makes up that footprint, has a real value to the clients that are paying for that service.
Yeah.
That's something that they need, but they can't get without you. So, you know, credit to you guys for taking those steps. And also, Sharon, as you mentioned as well, you know, continued improvement in terms of the data. You know, there's obviously lots of data the primary data that you can capture, units of electricity, miles travelled, fuel purchase, and all the rest of it. But certainly, you know, within the supply chain, having to rely on a spend-based metric is fine, gets you going and gets you up and running. But we're already looking at how you can start to improve the quality of the data, improve how you capture it, so that you can get wherever possible more activity-based data as opposed to a spend-based metric from that side of things. But the fact that you've already progressed and already improved, and it's only really the supply chain bit that you're relying on spend for, is a huge step in the right direction and helping you on that journey. Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me in your offices again. And I'm really excited about the next steps and helping you to get to that point where you're driving that value and providing that service for your clients. Absolute pleasure to be working with you.
I suppose the last thing I just want to add in is that I think the realisation of the importance of Scope 3, and as what you said about the supply chain, and a lot of businesses need to understand that a bit more, you know, with regards to the importance of managing Scope 3. It's all good and well understanding your Scopes 1 and 2. Those are the ones that we can influence personally. It's the Scope 3 that's the most challenging one. And if we don't start all working together to tackle Scope 3, we're going to have a bigger problem down the line.
Be left with not achieving targets.
Because
there's only so much you can do, and if the rest of your footprint or the majority of your footprint sits in an area that you have no influence over, how on earth do you hit those targets? So you need that collaborative approach. So the fact that you're already thinking about that now is great, because again it's improving the processes and widening the remit and helping to engage so that you can get to where you ultimately know you want to get to, and that feeds straight into the science-based targets.
Absolutely.
Which
we're keen to do. So,
thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to see you again.
Catch up.
Yeah.
Thanks, Alan.
Thanks.